Hi, gang. It's my first YouTube video. This is so exciting. Don't know how this is gonna play out, but hopefully it plays out okay. Um, so I figured I'd just jump right in because I have a lot of content that I want to cover, specifically on this topic. So this one's gonna be consent communication and what would be, I guess, the illusion of it. So I want to talk about like what that means to me, my personal experiences with it, and I guess like these concepts in all aspects and forms and instances of themselves. But I also wanted to preface this with like kind of an intro because I know this is going to be my first video I'm posting. And before, I guess if strangers see this, assuming strangers will see this hopefully, before you subscribe, I hate that word because I feel like a YouTuber. Sorry. Before you subscribe or listen to me like talk nonstop for however long I'm gonna be talking each video, um, I just wanted to start it with like everything is based on my own life experiences. So I put them in specific kind of adjectives, specific descriptions of themselves based on how I've experienced them. And I'm not going to pretend like I can sit here and like give like a practically like a sermon about it cuz I don't know. Like even now, all of the connections that I've had in the past, a lot of them confuse me. And a lot of how they ended confuse me, or a lot of how they continue confuse me, or a lot of how they started confuse me. And I could even comfortably say that like 95% of these connections confuse me. Um, and I think it's okay. That's fine. I think that's fine. But in that confusion, I want you to know that there is uncertainty. So there is a lot of what I'm saying that I'm uncertain about, but I'm voicing it the way I would in this present moment. So I wanted to just like kind of preface it with that because I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm giving life lessons or say like you should cope with this the exact way I coped with it because it worked. But like, no, I'm not doing that because I don't think that's a great way to cope. I think you need to find your own ways to cope. I think sometimes they're really fucking abstract and weird, which is fine. And I don't think I should really be taken into account in that way. I guess like maybe forming some ideas of how you want to process things, but either way, off topic. Um I'm not sitting here to try to tell you how to do things. I'm not trying to tell people how to feel about certain things. And I just wanted to put these kinds of videos out there specifically to ensure that people that have been in similar situations as me in this sense know that there are different concepts of perception and consumption over the internet that can actually help you. And in that way, I do want to help. I want to help specifically in the idea of feeling heard. So I think a lot of these ideas that I'm going to be talking about are going to be very hyper specific, so hopefully they'll reach the target audience in that sense. Um, but like my current, I guess, as an example, my current life task that I've tasked myself to do in the past, like, however, I guess, year, couple months or so, is to just learn to forgive. And I don't mean forgive in the sense that I want, like, some kind of gratification from, like, maybe a sense of closure, but forgive in the sense that I can understand that some things, like, I guess that's closure in and of itself. So I can understand that some things are just going to be left an open book. And maybe they'll be revisited, maybe they won't, but my concept of forgiving is not of forgetting, but being able to just kind of live with it. And not, like, I guess, have this kind of, like, false hope in the back of my head. Because I think, and like I said, I might be totally wrong, which is fine. I'm fine with that. But I think when people say they want to learn to forgive, a lot of what they're saying is that they want to learn to forgive for the sake of not hating this other person so much to their core to where it drains the energy out of them. So that's not what I'm getting at. I think I'm going to hate who I'm going to hate. I think I need to let that course of action happen. I need to let it take its course. I need to feel the anger. I need to feel the rage for however many years, maybe however many months that I need to, however many days. I don't care because I feel like I need to hate. I need to hate and I need to love and I need to dislike. And I don't think I'm any less of an emotionally intelligent human for hating. And I think that's a very undershared statement. I think there is this sense, this ideology that you need to not hate in order to be a mature human being. And I think that's kind of ridiculous because it gets to a point where you are hurt so often that you, instead of processing it this specific way where you don't end up hating, you just end up pushing it down because you feel it's wrong. And I think a lot of these self-help books that are put out there, a lot of the learning to accept and forgive and forget, blah blah blah, like, I think those are severely mistaken in the way that they say things. Because I've had a lot of falling out. I've had a lot of falling out. I've had a lot of situations being warped, misconstrued. I've had a lot of friends that I don't talk to anymore that I wish I did, but I just can't. And I'm sad about that. And I'm going to continue wishing that there was a sense of closure, that there was some kind of reconciliation. And I'm not going to force myself to kind of stop yearning for that, because I think that's an important part of who I am. Like, generally, I think it's important to me to be able to process through these emotions that I'm feeling and to be able to kind of connect with them and, like, just absorb them into myself the way they should be, instead of pushing them out into the ether and essentially saying, you know what, I need to forget. I need to forgive this person because it's just too much on me. But I think the strength is in letting yourself feel that. I think it's in letting yourself feel it for an absurd amount of time until you can say, you know what, I've felt enough of this. Like, I've had enough of this anger and this, like, sadness and resentment just, like, pumping out of me to the point where I think I'm okay now. I'm not okay, but I think that I can be content in the emotions that I've felt now, and I can be content in how I view the situation now, even though I might hate the situation still. So I think the best way to describe what I'm trying to say is that people should start feeling content in their misery. And I think misery is such an important thing to feel because it gives you substance, it gives you knowledge, it gives you perception, it gives you all of these things that you wouldn't previously have without this situation dawning on you. And it's just so important to me. It's so important to me to process the fact that let's use like the analogy we were previously using of falling out with someone. So it's important for me to be completely, totally, like, happy in my friendship or in my relationship with this person, have a horrible, horrible fucking falling out. I'm talking, like, earth-shattering, like, changed my whole life falling out. It's important for me to have that connection, to understand that it was a relationship, it was a friendship that meant the world to me, and then for me to say, but it got fucked in the end. And it got really fucked in the end. And it was for no reason. It was essentially for something completely stupid that shouldn't have happened, but it did anyway. And that's okay to say. Because sometimes it's not that, you know, people are showing their true colors. Sometimes it's not that people are, like, scheming or they're completely inconsiderate of your feelings or emotions or whatever. And while that may be the case most times when you fall out with someone, sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's this completely inexplainable thing where there are just complicated emotions on both sides. So as a result, the fear takes over and you both run opposite directions. And one person wants to run back, the other might want to run back, but the other one will never know. So you just keep going opposite directions. And you cover miles and miles and miles worth of opposite directions until you finally get to a point where you're like, I can stop running and I can settle down here. And you're going to continue being super far from the other person. And you're going to continue being extremely far unless you go take the chance to walk all the way back. But in walking all the way back, you're going to cover 10 times the mileage of before because they also ran the other direction. And that's what complicates things. So in terms of that, sometimes it's okay to say that's how it is. Because sometimes the emotions on both sides are just so jarring. They're so, like, emotionally complex that you can't just jump back in. And while that might not have been the most common case for me, I feel like sometimes I feel like it might have been, sometimes I feel like it might not have been, but I'm not going to know until I cover that track back, which I'm not going to. Because that's a lot of work, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of effort, and that's where it comes in, where you have to have the strength to not do that. And I've had to fight it off a couple times, and I feel like the only way in which you're able to run back that direction is if they also ran back and covered half of the distance. Is if you guys meet in the middle, if you guys are on the same wavelength in terms of that, where you're like, hey, something happened and I'm not sure what happened, but let's try to talk about it. And that's such a rare instance that it's just not worth entertaining. And I'm so sad to say that, because I feel like I've been able to experience so much, and I've been able to just consume so many people's personalities and be able to just process them and see the beauty in it all and meet all these complex people. But the thing about meeting complex people is you're gonna get complex emotions with them. And I think that is something that hurts so much, and that's the risk of doing all of this. Obviously, there's always a risk. There's always a risk. And in like connecting with someone and being able to have that connection, obviously you'll feel content in the fact that you had it in the first place, but it's not really going to be gratifying 15 years later. So it's kind of a thing where you have to accept that it might end for no fucking reason. It might just end. And that might be how it is, and that might be the way it is and the way it has to be, and you might just have to forget each other, or you might have to constantly remember each other. But I think that is so important. And I think it's so important to have that. It's so important to just feel the pain. And I guess in my personal instance, I don't want that pain to try and be therapeutic. I don't want it. And it might be damaging for a hot second. I might do dumb shit. I might say dumb shit. Not to hurt people, but more so like self-destructive things that were like, I want them back, or I want to like talk to them again, or I miss them. I might do self-destructive things, but I need those things. I think I need what it means to not be therapeutic. I need that unfiltered human experience to kind of be able to say that I fully and totally went through the motions and got through it. Because I feel like if you do filter it down to these therapeutic concepts and ideas, the other ideas are going to hit you at some point. They're going to constantly pester you and bother you, and just like processing things in a healthy way is not going to help you until you process them in the raw form that they come in. And this sounds like I'm anti-therapy, but I'm so pro-therapy that it hurts. And for this specific instance, I found out that's what works best for me. And in terms of like losing that connection, I don't want to have to dumb it down to something that it's not. I don't want to have to say we never worked out, or we wouldn't have ever like gone any further, because what if we did? Because we totally could have. What if we had that synergy all along? What if we had the synergy to keep going, but just through no one's fault, or maybe through fault of its own, it just ended, and that's how it was. I just think it's so important to process that, to understand that, and to fully digest that, and then to focus on moving on. Because I think the moving on part is the easiest when you get through all of that. And I think it's the most important, of course, because moving on is like, I guess, kind of the big red button that you press to say, fuck it, I'm out. And even though you might press that big red button, you're probably still not certain, because it's probably always going to be hanging over your head regardless. But it's kind of a big red button you can't come back from. So being able to move on to something else, move on to someone else, that's something you can't, in theory, come back from with the same moral ideas I have. But I think generally, I guess, TLDR, it's so important to feel things the way they are. And it's so important to lose a connection the same way that you gained it, and let it happen. Just let the feelings, the emotions, all of that happen. Because I've experienced in trying to create, let's say I'm going to use the ending of a connection as an example. So someone had done something that really hurt me, and in not wanting to feel sad about it, because I didn't want to be vulnerable, I didn't want to feel like I was less than them because I was hurt by this, I instead was angry. And anger is not the best thing to act out on. So I found myself being incredibly, like, hostile, incredibly angry, incredibly, like, vocal in how I felt, regardless of how hurtful it was to the person that hurt me. And I think a lot of people will say, well, they deserved it because they hurt you, right? And people are going to say, how did they hurt you? Because that depends. I'm going to say they hurt me regardless of knowing that what they did would have hurt me. And so people would say, well, they deserved it. They did what they did. They made their decision. You can make yours now. And I agreed with that at the time. I did. But I realized for my own peace of mind, that was the worst route to go on, because I just embodied the sense of anger that I felt boiling up in my chest constantly, and I just threw it out on people. And while these people may have quote unquote deserved it, these people were horrible people. I don't agree with anything they did. I don't agree with how they treated me. I don't agree with a lot of the signs they ignored before they hurt me. But I also don't agree with me being overly angry constantly. I don't think I'm an angry person. I don't think that I want to be someone that is angry. I don't think that I want to be someone that just constantly gets angry, or that's my first reaction to everything that upsets me in any scenario, because I was just such a horrible sense of hostility that it kind of disgusts me to this day. And I think with my moral concepts, with my moral ideology that I have now, I can comfortably say that that's not how I get anymore. I might be intense. I'm not angry. I can speak my mind. I'm not angry. I can say things the way they are. I'm not angry. And I think there is a very distinct line between angry and forward. And I think I kind of learned to be forward rather than angry. And in that falling out, there was that learning experience. And while I do wish I would have spoken differently, I wish I would have reacted differently, I wish I would have acted differently for my own peace of mind, because it dwelled on me for months and months later. And even now, I feel like horrible about it because it's not who I am. But on the same token, the thing that happened was not something I was expecting. That was not something I should have processed. That was not something that in theory should have happened with this connection that I had with another person that was so trusting. So, it's kind of a moral quandary in that sense. So, is it right or is it not? I guess I'll never know. But it was a learning experience, and it was something I regret all the same. Do I wish it never happened? Realistically, yes. Theoretically, no. Because then I wouldn't have what I have now. I wouldn't have the experience I have now. I wouldn't have that to look back on to feel scared of. Because when I am faced with someone hurting me, I immediately get angry. That's my reaction now. I try to transform that anger into just forward speaking in a way that's not disrespectful. Obviously, I'm human. I slip up. I encourage people to call me out. Maybe I didn't before, but I do encourage it now. And that's what I think was really important from taking away from that falling out. Because I had so many learning experiences. I learned so much more about myself. I learned so much more about kind of like all the people that I'm surrounded by, because like I was able to kind of open that door to let people in to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And I'm glad I have that. And I feel like I am stubborn. I'm a stubborn person, but at heart, I want to not be. And I want to, and in like going through this journey of kind of forgiving, like I said before, if I did say that before, I want to learn to forgive myself in that sense. I want to learn to kind of forgive everything that I've done in the past, to kind of anchor myself in the present and learn from that, and not let the forgiveness aspect kind of dull it down. I want to be scared of reacting the same way I did in the past so that it never happens again. And while fear isn't really the best emotion to go off of in terms of that, it's the best in what works for me. I want to be scared of hurting the people I care about. I want to be scared of kind of lashing out when I'm not supposed to be. I want to be scared of acting some disrespectful way that I shouldn't be. I feel like that's something everyone should be scared of. And like I said, personal experiences, this may not resonate with everybody, which is fine, which is totally fine. But I think it's just a really important concept to kind of swallow at the very least. Just like, fear is so harmful, but it can be so important. And it can help so much in terms of self-improvement. Because a lot of people don't have that fear of losing the people around them. A lot of people don't have that fear of losing the people they care about, and in turn kind of embody this sense of ungratefulness that they don't realize before it's too late. And I think that fear is so, so important. And the fear is kind of what drives me to this day to be grateful towards my friends, to remember that they are what I have. They are all I have. And I have, like, such a sense of appreciation for them that it's kind of hard to fathom sometimes. I wish I could, like, break the earth off of its axis and just put it in a fucking gift box and give it to them. Like, I would. And I don't want to be praised for that, because it's something that anyone should do. It's just with that connection, with those intricate kind of beautiful connections that you have with each other, especially with, like, a special someone that you might have, it's so important to remember or consider, do you want to give them the world? What are you willing to do for them? That's a question that I do like to ask myself a lot with the people I meet, with the people I know, with the people I get to know. What am I willing to do for them? Are they the type of people that can call me at like 4:00 in the morning and I'd pick up? Or would I look at it in confusion and let it hang up and text and be like, hey, what the fuck? And I think it's important to have the distinction between the two, of course. You shouldn't give anyone everything. You should pick and choose wisely, because you only have so much everything to go around. And I love that it's so special to me, and there are so few people that I'm willing to do certain things for. I love that. And I can appreciate other connections regardless. I can say that I love my friends. I can say that I love my acquaintances. Not love, but But I can say that. And I can comfortably say that. And I can know that there is a line. And there is things that I'm not willing to do. There are things that I'm saving the energy for the people I am willing to do it for. And I think that's okay. And I think anyone would think that's okay. I think that's just a universal okay. And it's just really important to me that people grasp that notion as something that should be universal. Because there is no, like, intimacy in not wanting to do much for someone. There is no intimate connection. There might be a connection. There is a such thing as a connection that doesn't fucking matter. But it's not something worth noting. And you want it to be something worth noting. You want to leave something there. You want to leave kind of a spark every time. And I try really hard to just kind of connect with who I can when I can. I'm more of an introvert at heart, I will say. It's really uncomfortable for me to talk to new people. It's really uncomfortable sometimes for me to talk in even group scenarios where I know everyone. So I do what I can. I do it whenever I can. And I don't usually regret it. And I will say that even with the people that I've had falling outs with, I don't regret it. Obviously, I feel a certain way that I feel about it. I regret certain people and certain things they've done, certain things that I've associated myself with. But I can't comfortably say that everyone that I've had this aggressive falling out with, or this kind of silent and painful passing falling out with, that I can comfortably say that I hate them or that I dislike them, but I can't say that I appreciate the connection that I had, and like I should at least be happy that I had it. Like that's such self-help book material. I process it the way I do. And whether that be in between or swinging back and forth like a pendulum, it is what it is. And it's so important to be realistic about that, because you're going to read all these self-help books that require all this aggressive amount of tasking and scheduling practically to do with your emotions that you need to be doing. Don't fucking listen to it. Don't. Because it's ridiculous. And I've had multiple of these self-help books and they've done nothing for me, because it's essentially just people, instead of being able to say, this might not work for everyone, it's, you have to do this, you have to do that, and then you have to move on. And you have to forget them, or else you're going to spend the rest of your life in misery. Because you're not going to spend the rest of your life in misery. I promise you, even if you're dwelling on them 10 years later, it shows you're that kind of person. And you're that kind of person to put that much into that connection that it resides with you, and it will reside with you. And it's going to feel like a splinter at first. It's going to feel like an annoying little fucking splinter that you just keep picking at and you can't get it out. But eventually, it'll embed itself into your skin. It'll go further deep. It'll go deeper enough to where you stop noticing it, and it's there, and it's just there. And that's okay. Because I have a splinter, and it's there. And it'll be fine. And it hasn't embedded itself just yet. And it's been quite a long time. And sometimes I even hope or wish that the person I had that connection with will come and take it out. But that might not be realistic. That might be realistic. I don't know. Because it's one of those things where we both ran opposite directions for miles and miles. So I can't really say that I know, because I don't know. Everything is so confusing at all times, and I just don't know. And that's fine. And I think a lot of what people like to put out there is things that they feel incredibly certain in will be universal ideas that everyone should follow. And it's like a 2 + 2 = 4 kind of thing. But it's not. Because, bitch, this is analytical geometry we're dealing with now. This is not 2nd grade math. And it's fucked up. It's fucked up. And it's so confusing. And it's just, if analytical geometry didn't have a right answer, if analytical geometry was subjective, if calculus was subjective, it's like if you were 5 years old in a calculus class, in an AP Calc class, and you don't know what the fuck was going on, and the teacher was pretending there were right answers, but there are no right answers, so you were just scrambling to try to get this right answer, and you wanted to actually stab the fucking pencil into your eye. That's how it is. And that's fine. Because these bitches in the self-help books like to pretend that it's not. And that's actually so ridiculous. Because it's so selfish. It's so selfish to put material like that out there and say that it's wrong to feel a certain type of way. And they might not say that word for word, but they'll say that dwelling on it kills you. And that's true. And I never said to dwell on it. I said to live with it, to live through it. Dwelling on it might kill you. But there's a different version of living through it. There's a different version of dwelling on it. There's different versions of all of these things with all of these different people. So I couldn't even begin to tell you what the difference is, because it's what the difference is for me. It's what the difference is for you. And these are not things that you can just solve. And I think that's what I realized through a lot of these falling outs. I was constantly I was literally utilizing the internet to look up how to get through a really bad friendship breakup. And I looked these things up, and I tried so hard to utilize everything, but in the end, all you can really do is take care of yourself. You just take care of yourself, and you let what happens happen, and you keep the people you care about closest to you. And that was my cheat. That was my cheat sheet, basically. Just let it happen, take care of yourself, and utilize the people you love and know, the people that care, because that's what will carry you through it. And it'll come with so many obstacles. It'll come with so much that you have to try to nitpick and figure out how to deal with. And it's so confusing, but that's how it's going to be. And I'm just like, I know I'm kind of drilling that point in, but I want to make sure that people know these self-help books and these people out there that kind of like, especially even therapists on social media, and I mean more the generic ones. We have a lot of like abstract ones rolling in, giving us really good ideas, really good concepts to think about, and I think that's great. But the generic kind of like, I guess what you would find on like 2015 Instagram reels, like whatever bullshit, like try to get out of bed today, try to go do something. You just gotta fucking do it. You just gotta work through it. And I think I bled that point dry. So I'm gonna shut up about that. And I'm gonna kind of leeway backwards. So I'm gonna move into making connections. And this one's a tough one, because there's so many ways to go about this. But I'm gonna start with my personal experiences. So what I've experienced specifically is that there is an influx of people that I know that I guess initiate the connection in more of a shallow way. And this might be kind of a call out, but I don't care, because I'm here to speak my mind and I'm here to talk about what I think is worth talking about. But I think a lot of people mistake wanting to make connections, wanting to get to know people just on a platonic level, as something that can be eventually warped into like sexuality or romance from the very beginning. And I think that's their mistake, because you should never go into getting to know someone in trying to get with them. You just shouldn't. Because it's just so harmful. It warps the connection, kind of puts expectations on it that you don't want. And I've had so many instances in which I just want to get to know people. I just want to know people for who they are, kind of initiate that friendship, let it grow into something like closer, let it, and by closer, I mean just like super close friends, I guess. Because that exclusivity is like definitely something to consider very further down the line. Like further down the line from meeting them for the first time is what I'm saying. So in having that, I think I've had a lot of people walk up to me and assume things. I've had a lot of people just kind of assume that like, I guess, if I'm like courteous in a certain way, if I'm kind of like nice a certain way, then I'm trying to like flirt or something. And I'm gonna be so honest with you, it's all men. And it's all just these guys that think they're totally like entitled to like any of that kind of stuff because I'm being kind. And I think that's been so harmful in all of the connections that I try to make, because I just feel like I have to go into every single person that I get to know with prefacing it with, by the way, I'm not trying to initiate anything further, because that's awkward. And that puts an expectation on it. So now I'm stuck in this middle point, because I've had people like, specifically the worst instance in which I've had it was that people like to kind of pretend like they can go my pace, pretend like they can go my very slow snail's pace in getting to know someone, in getting to know who they are and how they are. And then once they see that I'm comfortable with the pace we're going at, they go supersonic speed. And that's what's been faulty in most of the connections that I've made with people. I think it's mostly people that take my comfort for granted, or I guess, sorry, take advantage of my comfort is a better way to put it. And take my kindness for granted and kind of just warp it into something that it isn't, something that is not something that should be rushed into at all. Like, I'm firmly under the belief that things like that need to come natural. And in making them come natural, it needs to be friends, close friends, and then move on to that. Because I think it's just ridiculous to not know someone to their very core and ask them out and ask them to have this intimate connection with you and like have this kind of even ownership over you. And it's just really shallow to me because I feel like I'm not being seen for what I am. I feel like because I'm so malleable towards everyone that I get to know, that people mistake that for me being like their true love, basically, because we get along so well. And it's just me trying to like be agreeable and reasonable and like get to know people that come from different walks of life. I treat these things as such a learning experience that people think it's okay to fuck with that, basically. That people think it's okay to warp it into something. And the assumption that you can just do that and have it be okay is way too normalized. Because I know a lot of women have had this problem where they go into like a friendship or whatever with another guy and it's going really well and it goes like 2 months in and then the guy's like, hey, I need to talk to you about something, and then they confess that they like them. And it's like, okay, like, it's as if I can't be treated like I'm a friend because of my gender, which is so stupid. And it's so ridiculous because I've never had, like, I'm bisexual. I've never had a woman do this to me. And no, I have. I have. Great. I have. Yeah, I forgot about that. But my point still stands. I mean, I think it's too normalized to be able to say, you know what, let me ask them out. Even though we've only known each other for however long and we've hung out however many times. And if they turn me down, they turn me down. Worst they can say is no. Because you're putting the friendship at line. I mean, you're putting the friendship at risk. I'm sorry. You're putting the friendship at risk. And you're doing that because you assume they'll forgive you. Or you assume they'll be comfortable out of nowhere regardless of you asking them out directly after they reject you. And it's so important to know that when you confess that you like someone, you are putting the original friendship or relationship at risk. And if you've known them for however long, hopefully they'll have the reason to be able to say, it's okay, it's natural, I don't take any offense, and we can move on from this if you can move on from it. That is the reaction that you typically get from someone you really, really know. But in asking someone out that you don't exactly know, that you're still forming a kind of connection with, you're putting that at risk for your own gratification. You're putting that at risk for the chance that they might say yes, the chance that they might say, you know what, let me just try it out or something. Yeah, we can try something out. Like, it's just, there's no fear in it. There's no fear anymore. Like I was saying earlier, there should be fear. You should fear that you might lose someone. You should fear that they might not want to be around you anymore. And of course, I'm not trying to discourage anyone trying to shoot their shot. Because you should absolutely shoot your shot. But you should also remember that in shooting your shot, you might be shooting something else down. You might miss and shoot something else down. And that's important to consider when you do that. It's important to consider because there might be a way that you can do it, that you can go around that. That you can kind of confess your feelings, but also go back to normal. There might be a way to do that. But I think everyone should at least consider the idea that in confessing that you like someone, you are risking losing the friendship. And I think a lot of the people that I've encountered thus far have not considered that, because the idea of them somehow getting to be with me, which I'm assuming is for sexual reasons and not romantic reasons or like intimate reasons, because these people are shallow. It just also tears down my self-esteem in that sense. And obviously I don't want this to be a little therapy session for me. I don't like that. But naturally it would tear someone's self-esteem down if you were to just kind of keep asking them out, not for the sake of their personality, but for the sake of the artificial synergy between the two of you. And I say artificial because this is a concept that they brew inside of their heads, that we might be good together, and then they act on it. And it just gets so exhausting, and it gets so tiring to have to deal with this exact same thing time and time and time again, because it diminishes the idea of there ever being a possible connection without it. Just like, people never realize that sometimes it just starts slow. You just have to go slow. You have to take it through the courses, through the events that it has to go to get where you want to be. And in doing that, you have to embody a sense of patience. And even in waiting, even in being able to say, you know what, let me wait this out to say anything about how I feel about them. In waiting, you might even make some realizations on the way. And when people get too impatient, when they don't let it go through the kind of facts that it needs to go through, the like connection that it needs to kind of evolve into for them to comfortably go to them and say, hey, I like you, without it being completely fucking weird. I think without considering that, it genuinely just to its core is shallow. And hopefully what I'm saying makes sense, because this is like a concept I really want to get across. This is a concept that really irritates me, and it's something that I've battled with for so long, and it's been this phenomenon between people that I meet. And I know where to draw the line. I know when I'm leading people on and when I'm not, because I don't lead people on. I'm completely uncomfortable with the sensation of people touching me, with the idea of physical affection. So even that in and of itself, that should be a let me not. And when I say that, I'm just completely uncomfortable with it to people that I don't know well enough. So if I say, please don't touch me, I don't know you well enough for you to touch me. So why would I know you well enough for you to date me, or take me out on a date, or do other shallow things? And just, there is this death of romance, and there has been just this lack of traditional, just class in general, because people get so impatient, and they get so even horny, and they get so lonely. And instead of being like, you know what, this might be weird for me to do, let me take a moment, let me stop and let me think for a while, and let me maybe try it another time, or let me play it out for what it is. People just go for it. And it's so important to not do that. And I want anyone that sees this, that might be considering like asking someone out, like, sometimes that invokes a very negative reaction depending on your connection with this person. So you don't want to go up to someone that you don't know well enough. If you don't know my middle name, you should not be asking me out. Because there are situations where it is inappropriate, even in situations that might be seemingly casual and normal like that. Because it is inappropriate. It is inappropriate to ask someone out that you don't know well enough. And that's essentially the TLDR of all of this. It's inappropriate to ask someone out that you don't know well enough, much less pressure them and kind of egg them on to initiate that kind of connection. Like, even nonstop flirting and everything. Just, it baffles me that some people can't let the course of events play out the way they should in connections, in friendships, and in relationships. Because sometimes you just need to let it run on, and then you need to get to a point where you can say, okay, we're at the stage of connection in which it wouldn't be weird for me to do this, in which it wouldn't be strange. And obviously there are exceptions. There are exceptions because I know there are people that, like, fall for each other the second they see each other. Whatever. Cute. Fun. Not me. Not me. But yeah. That was essentially the biggest topic I wanted to cover, was, like, the beginning of connections. And then I already covered the end of connections. And there isn't really much to say within the connection, because that's all you achieve. But yeah. That was fun. Oh, sorry. I don't actually know how to end this. But, yeah. I appreciate you guys for watching. If you made it this far. It's been a hot second, so it's okay if you didn't. But I appreciate the views. And I hope this resonates with some people. And I hope that some people are able to kind of, I don't know, comment. Give me some, I guess, I don't know, give me some feedback, some personal experiences you had. It would actually be nice to know someone that, like, kind of went through, like, something similar or something, like, the same that I did. So, yeah. Yeah, I appreciate the view. I hope you guys enjoyed today's topic. There's actually a lot more to say about it, so there's probably going to be a part 2 at some point, because I have so much material to yap about. You guys are in luck, but yeah. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a good night.